One of the most interesting things about Corvette history is the way that the right people with the right skills always seem to come along at the right time. Sometimes they were visionaries from General Motors, other times they were racers willing to risk it all. And there have always been the Corvette enthusiast to keep the crossed flags flying. In 1996, however, a struggling Corvette museum would need someone to save the day who wasn't a car person at all. It would need someone with the faith, confidence, and ability to turn things around. A banker named Wendell Strode. Wendell was the 12th of 13 children, all of them born at home. His father was a Baptist minister and a farmer, so Wendell learned early on about prayer and hard work.
Well, I grew up on a farm, and I'm one of 13 children, 9 boys, 4 girls, and the 9 boys were a big part of Daddy's farming operation. He would buy farms that needed attention, but had potential. And he could use those boys then and to help him clear woods or, plant crops, do whatever needed to be done. We knew what our duty was, and we knew come dark, we better have that done. We didn't know it was as tough, maybe looking back today, as it was then, because we just had a great time. Never could play sports in school because Daddy wanted us to come home and get right to work on the farm. We did work hard, we played hard, we learned the power of the team, how much we could accomplish working together.
He would also know heartache as he lost his mother when he was just 4 years old. His sister Helen, who was only 13 at the time, would step up to take on the responsibility of caring for her younger siblings.
But she always was an encourager. She always wanted us to get the education that she was not able to get, to go on to college, and just continuing to remind us to always put God first in our life, and that many good things would happen if we would certainly take that approach.
He would eventually go to WKU and then switch over to vocational school with an eye on being a sportscaster. That's where he would meet his future wife, Jan.
I had met this beautiful young lady when I had been attending a broadcasting school in Columbus, Ohio. It was almost instant love from my standpoint in that she was just beautiful. She had long legs, she had long blonde hair, and just really was something. And we dated a few times, very few times, before I was inducted into the Army, and corresponded quite a bit while I was in the Army, and while I was in Vietnam, and while I was in Seoul and in Korea, and we decided to get married. I might add that we agreed to get married after my time in Vietnam, and I wanted to be sure that I survived Vietnam and was able to come home.
Wendell would learn something about courage, camaraderie, and sacrifice from his Delta Company brothers as his platoon was ambushed. Several were wounded and some were killed. Wendell would get shot in the shoulder and take shrapnel from an exploding grenade.
I was fortunate to be sent to Japan. I was there almost 2.5 months for surgery and rehabilitation. So I come home in September of 1969, and we got married. And then in January of 1970, I was discharged from the Army and come back to Kentucky and started at Western Kentucky University.
Determined to make a life for himself, he returned to WKU and started his 23-year career with the bank. His welcoming smile, leadership skills, and ability to make those around him feel like they were family would take him to the top position. As president of the bank, he would first hear about a project to build a museum for Corvette in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
As I remember, it was in November of 1988 that an article was in the local newspaper that the NCRS was looking to build a National Corvette Museum. And they hoped the Bowling Green community would be interested in it being located there. And when we as a chamber saw that article, we felt like it would be a tremendous economic development opportunity. We had the Corvette assembly plant here. We thought it would help stabilize the Corvette assembly plant staying here.
Several of us also bought into that idea, and as something that we certainly should pursue. We shouldn't let a prize like that go unsought. And of course, the people at the Chamber of Commerce, we brought them into it very quickly, and they were all in.
We had put together a task force on trying to recruit this museum. You know, at that time, Bowling Green was probably half the size that it is now. We knew we had to do something, special to recruit this museum to the community we thought it should be in.
Although we recognized the fact that Bowling Green would probably be the smallest community that would be competing for, a tourist attraction such as this, we wanted to give it a go. The museum belonged with the plant.
And Denny Griffin led the charge on that, and we got 30 acres donated. We got the state to agree to extend Corvette Drive and bring the utilities to the property. And we were all just kind of working together. And then in January of '89, a 5-person group, including Denny Griffin, representing the chamber, flew to Cypress Gardens, Florida, and made the presentation for the Corvette Museum to be in Bowling Green.
The NCRS was holding their winter regional meet in Florida at that time. While there, Wendell was able to observe something special about the Corvette and about Corvette people.
But I remember I was just overwhelmed with how this car could facilitate such a feeling of camaraderie and family. It reminded me so much of a family reunion.
A delegation from Bowling Green came down with the mayor, the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Wendell Strode. They made a pitch to us about Bowling Green across the street from the plant. At the end of that meeting, the board of directors agreed to use Bowling Green as its future site for the National Corvette Museum.
NCRS's plans were then, after they decided where they were going, to announce the museum and then to do a national fundraising campaign. And they thought it would be very successful in generating monies, donations, and that was not as successful as they had hoped. And it was really starting to die on the vine, I guess we might say. And that's when the local community, and I was involved in that from a chamber's perspective, that's when the local community kind of stepped in and put together a financing package that involved 3 local banks. So with a $6 million bank loan and $4.3 million in bonds, then we had the financing package in place to build the museum. And then I think it was in 1992 that ground was broken. Zora was here, drove the bulldozer, and then Labor Day weekend 1994 was the grand opening.
On September 2nd, 1994, the National Corvette Museum had its grand opening. Thousands of Corvettes from all over the country converged on Bowling Green.
Kentucky State Police say the caravan from Nashville was strung out for 22 miles. The one from Louisville was even longer. Some were still coming in while the dedicating and speech making were going on, but the ribbon got cut eventually, and then the museum was open. We made it! They're looking for 500,000 visitors a year to see these rare and unusual Corvettes. Some look familiar, and others you'll never find anywhere else. But Corvette owners say they all.
The museum started off with a bang. It was a huge success. The grand opening was awesome. People came from all over, celebrated in a big way. But then things started to turn downward. The original attendance projections that were done before the museum was built were not realized. They were way off. So the revenue didn't come in like it was supposed to or like it was expected to.
Well, obviously with the financial situation as dire as it was at that point in time, the bank was concerned. So we knew pretty quickly that the museum was getting in a situation that it was not going to be able to sustain.
To think that a bunch of car guys could get together and get the wherewithal to build a building down there to honor a car is pretty remarkable. But to think that those same guys could run a museum or know how to run a museum is obviously, as it turned out, a stretch too far.
In 1996, the second year of operation, we were required to meet certain cash flow, loan covenant requirements, and the museum was not meeting those requirements. So the banks technically had the ability to foreclose on the loan. We were technically in default on those loan covenants. Of course, they didn't really want to do that, but we needed somebody to come in and turn this place around and get things back on the right footing again. Wendell, being an esteemed banker, well-known, respected, was asked to come and consider being the executive director of the museum. And he did. He brought his vast knowledge and experience and was able to make some major changes.
On December 20th, 1996, Wendell became the executive director of the National Corvette Museum.
He started out the first day giving the facility financial integrity. The banks became more confident. They were getting regular reports from the Corvette Museum, from Wendell, and they were getting positive reactions from the visiting Corvette enthusiasts. Within a year or so, the city and the county were paid back their financial contributions. It's been a struggle. I mean, it hasn't been as easy as it looks like from the outside looking in, because Wendell has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this facility.
Under Wendell's watch, the museum would nearly double in size and became the home away from home for Corvette enthusiasts. Events would be like family reunions, and membership would go from 1,600 to 36,000. It became the ultimate delivery destination for people picking up their new Corvettes, as well as a vital connection point for the Corvette team and their customers. With the addition of the NCM Motorsports Park, every aspect of the Corvette experience was embraced.
Wendell Strode, I mean, when you think about the National Corvette Museum, that's the person you think of. I mean, he's really been our leader, and he's brought this museum to be a standard of auto museums around the world. You know, it was started just there in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Now it's world famous. He made the museum feel like a family. He, you know, we do the Winter Circle dinner. He may enjoy those hugs a little too much, but when we go to the National Corvette Museum, we feel like we're having a big homecoming.
As the museum grew, it would face challenges, but through it all, his calming presence and the faith behind it would inspire his team to rise to the occasion.
February 12th, 2014 was a day I don't think anyone in the Corvette world will ever forget.
At the National Corvette Museum in Kentucky, 8 classic cars all swallowed up, and it was all caught on camera.
And I remember coming into work that day, and despite everything that happened and despite so many unknowns, you know, whether insurance was going to cover it, whether the building was even safe at that point, Wendell always had this calm demeanor about him, that he could handle any situation. And I think a lot of that has to do with his relationship with the Lord, and anyone that's been around him knows how spiritual Wendell is.
I mean, this could have happened right in the middle of the day when people were there. I mean, it's amazing.
I guess the one thing that we would say, we're thankful that the good Lord permitted it to happen at 5:44 in the morning.
Wendell Strode handled a disaster and made it into a positive, made it into a tourist attraction. We had that sinkhole incident, lost a lot of beautiful cars, got totaled. But the way he handled this, I mean, it brought the museum a lot of national attention. It was really clever that actually turned something tragic into something that really helped promote the museum and actually get more people interested in the National Corvette Museum.
Wendell at the museum really keeping the place alive and having it thrive, an incredible job. So Wendell should be extremely proud of what he's helped create, and a very deserving member of the Hall of Fame.
He was just the perfect guy at the moment, badly needed by the Corvette Museum, and he accomplished marvelous things for the Corvette Museum in his time as our leader. And he became a car guy through the people, because he first loved the people that drove up in their Corvettes, and then he came to love the Corvette.
Wendell always taught team members at the museum that we're not just in the car business, we're in the people business. And the reason people keep coming back to the museum is for those relationships, those friendships that they're building, whether it's at events or during museum deliveries, or getting to know one-on-one some of the staff or the insurance department, or driving a car on track. So one of the things that's been very important carrying beyond Wendell's time at the museum is remembering the people side of things.
He mentored us to be servant leaders to our members and our supporters and visitors, to care about each other, put God first, and to make sure that we make everyone feel like they're part of our family when they walk in.
Then I'd like for the Corvette community to remember me as someone who loved Corvette enthusiasts and made sure that this place that was their home, the National Corvette Museum, was a place they could come to, they could feel like they were coming home, and that they could be proud.
For his role in taking a struggling museum and growing it into the monument that it is to the past, present, and future of America's sports car, we proudly welcome Wendell Strode into the Corvette Hall of Fame.